Imagine sitting on a hillside at dusk. The sky is turning gold, sheep are grazing nearby, and a young boy with a sling and a harp is singing praises that echo into the valley. That boy is David, also known as Dawud, a name you may know only from one dramatic battle, yet his life story is far richer, deeper, and more relevant than a single victory. He began as an unnoticed shepherd. He became a fearless warrior. He rose to be a prophet and king whose words still move hearts today. The Bible and the Quran both honor him as a man of courage, devotion, and repentance. This episode will take you through David's entire journey, from his quiet beginnings to his highest triumphs and deepest mistakes, and show you lessons about faith, leadership, and humility that can change how you see your own challenges right now. Before the giant and before the crown, David was simply the youngest son of Jesse, tending sheep in Bethlehem. His brothers were soldiers. He was left with the animals, learning to guide them gently, defend them fiercely, and play music to calm them. The Bible in 1 Samuel 16 paints the scene where the prophet Samuel comes to anoint a new king. Each of Jesse's older sons passes by. Each one seems strong and kingly, but God says no. Finally, they call the boy from the fields. Smelling of pasture, ruddy and bright-eyed, he stands before Samuel, and the oil is poured. The Quran, 38:17, also highlights David as a servant of strength who turned back to God. Even before his public life, his heart was being shaped. If you have ever felt overlooked or hidden, remember David. Sometimes the time you spend in the fields of your life is the very preparation for your future calling. Next, you will see how this unnoticed shepherd met a giant and stepped into history. Picture a battlefield divided by fear. On one hill stands the army of Israel, trembling. On the other stands a towering warrior from the Philistines named Goliath. For 40 days he taunts them. No one dares step forward. Into this scene walks David, still a teenager, carrying bread for his brothers. He hears the insults and feels his heart burn. Where others see a giant too big to fight, David sees an opponent too big to miss. He remembers the lions and bears he drove away from his sheep. He refuses the heavy armor of King Saul. With only a sling and 5 smooth stones, he steps out. The Quran, 2:51, summarizes this moment beautifully. So they defeated them by permission of God, and David killed Goliath, and God gave him kingship and wisdom. The stone flies. The giant falls. A nation is saved. This story is not only about bravery, it is about perspective. David did not let fear define the size of his challenge. He let faith define it. What giants in your life might look smaller if you remembered your past victories and trusted in a higher strength? Soon, you will discover how this shepherd boy who became a hero entered the royal court, and how that honor tested him in ways far harder than battle. Victory on the battlefield opened doors that David had never imagined. King Saul welcomed him into the royal court. David's music calmed the troubled king. His courage inspired soldiers, and his wisdom earned the admiration of many. From shepherd to warrior to court musician, his life seemed to be rising like a bright star. Yet inside the palace, a new challenge grew. Saul began to feel threatened. The songs of the people, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands, fed jealousy. David suddenly went from being the king's favorite to being the king's target. Here lies a powerful lesson. Sometimes, success does not create peace. It creates new tests of patience and character. David's reaction was not revenge. He honored the king's position, avoided harming him even when he could, and relied on prayer for guidance. Think of a moment when your own growth created tension, maybe at work, in your family, or in your community. David's example shows that rising higher does not always mean fighting harder. Sometimes it means bowing lower, showing restraint and trusting timing. Next, we will see how David's patience and reliance on God during years of trial shaped him into a leader far more prepared for kingship than a quick victory ever could. After jealousy erupted, David's life shifted from royal halls to hiding in caves. He became a man on the run, gathering a small band of loyal followers while King Saul pursued him relentlessly. Imagine going from public celebration to secret shelters overnight. It was a complete reversal of fortune. These years of exile were not wasted time. They were David's training ground for humility, patience, and leadership. He learned how to guide people in hardship, how to depend on prayer rather than power, and how to forgive rather than retaliate. More than once, David had the chance to harm Saul, yet he refused. Each time he chose mercy, he was strengthening the very quality that would later hold his kingdom together. Think of it as a seed underground. At first, it looks like nothing is happening. In truth, roots are growing deep to hold a future tree. David's hidden years built roots for his public life. If you have ever felt like your progress is delayed, David's story invites you to see delay as preparation, not punishment. Every cave taught him something about leadership that no throne could. In the next part, we will see how the moment finally arrived when David's long season of preparation turned into his rise to kingship, and how that moment carries lessons for anyone waiting for a breakthrough. After years of hiding, David's waiting ended. Saul's reign collapsed, and the people of Judah first crowned David as their king. Later, the entire nation united under his leadership. It was not a sudden stroke of luck. It was the flowering of years of character, patience, and vision. David moved the capital to Jerusalem, uniting the tribes and establishing a center for worship and governance. He did not build his reign on revenge. Instead, he offered kindness, even to those who had opposed him, including members of Saul's family. This showed his people that his rule was different, rooted in justice, compassion, and reverence for God. Picture a shepherd gathering scattered sheep into one flock. David's kingship was about drawing people together, not scattering them. His early years as a shepherd had shaped his heart to guide rather than dominate. This part of the story is not only historical, but also personal. It reminds us that leadership is not a title, but a responsibility. True influence begins in small acts of courage and kindness long before any public recognition arrives. As we move into the next section, we will look at the deeper legacy of David, not just his victories and leadership, but the spiritual lessons and timeless wisdom that his life continues to offer. This is where his story becomes not only inspiring, but transformative for your own journey. Take a deep breath and look back over David's journey. He began as an unknown shepherd boy, tending sheep on lonely hillsides. He stepped forward in courage when others trembled before Goliath. He refused shortcuts to power even when he had the chance. He led a divided nation into unity. And through it all, he remained a man striving to walk with God, even when he stumbled. This story is not a distant history lesson. It is a living pattern. It shows how small acts of faithfulness prepare a person for great responsibility. It shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act with trust in something higher. It shows that patience, forgiveness, and integrity are not weaknesses, but the very qualities that build unshakable leadership. Think of the places in your own life where you feel small, unnoticed, or unprepared. David's life says that those quiet moments matter. Think of the giants you face, fears, challenges, or obstacles. David's story says that victory does not depend on size, but on vision, skill, and faith. Think of times you are tempted to rush ahead or take shortcuts. David's example says that waiting with integrity builds a stronger foundation for the future. This documentary is an invitation. If David's story has stirred something in you, take a moment to reflect on your own path. What qualities can you begin nurturing today? Courage, patience, integrity, or faith? If you found this journey meaningful, join this growing community by liking the video, leaving a comment with your reflections, and subscribing for more inspiring stories from the lives of the great figures of history. Together, we can learn, grow, and walk the path of wisdom one step at a time.